Well, the narrative was fully formed as soon, literally the moment that there was a shooting at a gay nightclub in Colorado Springs, Colorado. The entire legacy media infrastructure, every major Democrat in America decided this was the fault of libs of TikTok and Tucker Carlson and Matt Walsh and Chris Rufo and me and any other American who did not like Drag Queen Story Hour or who was not in favor of same-sex marriage or who believed that transing the children is a bad thing. It was all our fault. It was our fault. It was your fault. If you believe that there's anything wrong with any of those things, then it is your fault if a deranged individual goes to a gay nightclub and shoots a bunch of people. Now, the narrative was crap from the beginning. It's crap because unless you are inciting violence, actively calling for people to do violence to other human beings, you are not responsible for the violence that they do. This has been the rule in free speech for literally ever. And yet, the left jumped out in front of the story before they even bothered to wait for any facts at all and said that essentially the uptick in sentiment against the transing of the children was responsible for a mass shooting at a gay nightclub. Because this is the game that they always play. It doesn't matter whether the person was deranged. It doesn't matter if the person had a long history of red flags that were ignored by police. It doesn't matter whether the square peg fits in the round hole or not. The narrative is always and forever, my political opponents are responsible for murder, therefore there must be a censorship regime. That was the narrative. Now, all they had to do was wait for the facts. And it's important to remember this. This shooting did not happen all that long ago. The shooting happened just days ago. All the members of the media had to do was wait for the facts, which is, in fact, their job. Now, I understand we have a media infrastructure that rewards people who are first and wrong rather than rewarding people who wait and are right. That is just how our media infrastructure generally works now. If you jump on a story and it turns out that you're wrong 90% of the time, but 10% of the time you are right, we remember the 10% of the time that you're right, and we forget the 90% of the time you're wrong because you were first, and that's the really important thing. And so there really is no disincentive for members of the media to create fully formed narratives completely in coincidence with democratic priorities and then to just run those out there. Because after all, if they're wrong, we'll just memory hole it. 3 months from now, nobody's going to remember that the media made a complete mockery of themselves. Nobody's going to remember that all the media had to do was wait for a few days. Now, what am I talking about here? What I'm talking about here is the news this morning that the Colorado club shooting suspect is non-binary according to his attorneys. Poof goes the narrative. It's gone. Watch how fast this story gets memory holed now. According to Axios.com, the public defenders for the suspect in the mass shooting at a Colorado Springs LGBTQ nightclub said in a Tuesday night court filing obtained by a New York Times reporter, their client is non-binary and uses they-them pronouns. And the media are confused and bewildered and puzzled because, after all, this throws a wrench into all of their greatest hopes and desires regarding the narrative. Now remember, from the very beginning, it was perfectly obvious this person was deranged. How did we know this person was deranged? Not just because they committed a mass shooting, which is deranged activity, but also because we knew within hours that this person had been arrested last year for threatening his mother with a gun and threatening to blow her up with a homemade bomb before the police arrested him and then didn't take away his guns. So that would be pretty good evidence of being a deranged violence individual who should have been on the police radar, should it not? But we were told that didn't matter. There were full op-eds in the New York Times saying this was not about mental illness. This was not about deranged violence. This is about nothing except for the broad spectrum narrative that the right is evil and must be silenced. And we need to shut it down, shut it all down. We need to stop Elon Musk from opening up Twitter to evil, nefarious folk who disagree with us. We need to make sure that everyone we disagree with on YouTube gets demonetized. We have to make sure that the language of the right is never heard again, because that's the only way to assure that gay people don't just get randomly shot at a nightclub. That was the narrative, and they ran with it. And boy, did they run with it. It has been nonstop blanket narrative coverage since the shooting. And now it turns out that the suspect is saying that he is non-binary. And this puts the media in a huge pickle. It puts the media in a pickle for a couple reasons. One, it turns out the narrative is not quite as simple as they thought it was. Two, they now cannot claim that this person is mentally ill or deranged because, after all, they've created a system in which you declaring that you are a non-binary human, a thing that does not exist, we are all members of biological sexes, that you declaring that you are non-binary actually makes you more sane. That in some ways, you saying that you are non-binary, what that is the true you. You're not allowed to doubt anything. What the shooter says now must be taken as absolute, verifiable truth. You have to take at face value this person saying that he is a they, them. You must, because after all, you must respect the pronouns. They've created this pathetic logical box for themselves. Now, for the rest of us who live in the normal world, this is always a very clear story. Deranged individual goes and does something evil. Boom, end of story. And then when the person goes to prison and suggests that he is a member of a they-them species that does not exist, you say, oh, well, because this person obviously is a deranged individual with mental illness. Like that, okay, all fits the narrative. But now the left is confused and they're bewildered and they're puzzled and they don't know what to do. And so some of the ways they've been reacting, quite fascinating. So Ben Collins, who's just the worst actor in all of this, he is the senior reporter at NBC News, who's blamed literally the entire right for everything that has happened right here. He's appeared on television basically saying that if you oppose Drag Queen Story Hour, which in fact is a wonderful, wonderful thing, he said this on TV, that Drag Queen Story Hour is wonderful. It's where little kids get to meet drag queens. Why would that possibly be? Why would you oppose that? Why would that be a bad thing? Well, he was also on your TV yesterday, was Ben Collins, suggesting that the Nazis are coming. That really what this is about, it's the evil people at Breitbart who are calling for death upon gay, lesbian, trans people. He can't provide any evidence that that's happening, but, it's really, the Nazis are coming, guys. And the Nazis, they really didn't like gender non-binary people. So if you say that there is no such thing as a non-binary gender, if you say that boys are boys and girls are girls, basically you're a Nazi. And because you're a Nazi, people are shooting up gay nightclubs. This is Ben Collins yesterday.
There is a long history of this. I talked to this woman named Jennifer Merciesa, who's a rhetoric professor at Texas A&M. And she was telling me about this thing called hate objects that come up in, pre-fascist governments, where they take people they describe as degenerates, right? And before Nazi Germany, it was in fact gay people who played with, gender conformity. And they say they are contributing to the downfall of society. They are the reason that, things cost more, that the crops aren't coming up, right? We have been through this in the past. It's very dark.
Okay, this pathetic person, he's a terrible reporter. And again, he just blanketed himself on TV, talking about how the right was to blame for the shooting. It was Nazi Germany, it was Breitbart, it was Tucker Carlson, it was all of them. Well, this morning he issues a couple of updates on the Colorado Springs story. Just a few updates, it was last night. A few updates. The suspect is requesting to go by they, them, according to court docs provided to the New York Times. The Colorado suspect was 15 when they requested a name change. So first of all, I love that the entire media has to immediately shift mode and respect the pronouns of a mass murderer. There are those of us who are like, no, that's a dude. And you guys are like, no, we got to respect his pronouns. We got to. I mean, sure, he just murdered 5 gay people and injured another 25 people. But the important thing, he's a they. This person's harassment by edgelords online was thoroughly documented on the hate site Encyclopedia Dramatica, which outlined a harassment campaign repeatedly calling this person a pedophile. They accrued some of those posts and mocked the person's grandmother's GoFundMe to send the person to Japan. I'm studiously avoiding saying the name of the shooter because this is something we do on the show to prevent mass shootings, something no one in the media apparently will do. We on this show and over at our site, over at Daily Wire, we do not mention the names of mass shooters because it gives them exactly the sort of notoriety and glory they're looking for. No one in the mass legacy media will do this. No one. It's amazing. And then they'll blame us, obviously. Encyclopedia Dramatica, the hate site that compiled years of records of online bullying of the Colorado Springs suspect, updated the page when they realized that the shooter had an entry for years, adding that this person, quote, shot up a gay bar because he was tired of all the harassment. Okay, so the narrative is now shifting from Ben Collins in real time. So now the shooter, he's sympathetic to. Now the shooter had a rough childhood. Everybody was bullying this non-binary person, and that's probably why. So as it turns out, according to Ben Collins, the right is to blame because this person was a disciple of the right with no evidence, by the way, none. I mean, the media tried to trot out not the relevant fact that this person was a psychologically disturbed human being with violent tendencies. They didn't care about that. They cared that his grandfather was a Republican politician in California or something, which is an amazing way to journalism. I mean, that's just high-level journalisming. Well, we don't know anything about this person, but you know what his grandfather was. What? His grandfather was? Excuse me, my grandfather one grandfather ran a clothing store and one advised people on speech writing at AT&T. What does that have to do with anything? But apparently that was the relevant fact. The relevant fact is that his granddad wore a MAGA hat one time, not that he was a psychologically disturbed individual arrested by the cops last year. And the other relevant fact, of course, is that this person had to be a member of the right without any evidence whatsoever. No evidence. And then the evidence comes in that the person actually is non-binary because this is what the person now claims and apparently has been claiming. And their response is, well, probably if they are non-binary, it's because of bullying. So it's still the right. So either this person was bullied by the right into shooting up a gay club, or the person was a disciple of the right, so shot up a gay club. Or maybe your narratives aren't so comfy cozy. Maybe they aren't so pat. And maybe you guys manufacture narratives because you want the outcome. You want the censorship. You want people you disagree with silenced. Only the left does this in modern America. Only the left immediately jumps on instances of violence and suggests that half the country has to be shut up on controversial public issues, including transing of the children. Only you do this. It's nasty and it's cynical and it's disgusting, and you violate your most basic obligation as journalists when you do this. Because again, you guys are the fact finders, right? You're above it. You're supposed to be. You guys are the defenders of the American Republic. You guys keep telling us this. You journalismists, you keep telling us that this is your job, is to bring information to the. How could anyone label you an enemy of the people? How could anyone say that sort of stuff? No one should say that sort of stuff. You guys are objective journalism experts who focus first on the facts. That's all you care about is just the facts, except that you don't. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing right now. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be getting into the NHL, which has declared that trans men are men. Also, Balenciaga, a fashion company pushing child porn. Seriously, if you're not a member, click the link in the description and join us.